the WHO has been vocally critical about the Biden administration's decision and the United States moving forward with booster shots. With global vaccine apartheid, I mean, that gulf is just going to widen. So I am understanding of what the Biden administration is trying to do from their own perspective. They think it's in their self-interest to make sure the pandemic tamps down and they don't want any more Americans dying. But the obligation that we have worldwide as people are getting boosters, and it's going to be available to us en masse, seemingly, in a few months. The most immunocompromised are already beginning to get them, and in September it's going to roll out a little bit more. What is the Biden administration's responsibility in this area?
Well, see, now this is where I am completely at odds with the Biden administration, because they set the tone and the tenor that we would be getting back to normal and that school will be opening up and that we should look for school to open up back at capacity. That is a message from the Biden administration that I absolutely yell at the top of my lungs that you're dead wrong on that. And now tying it back to the booster shots and their responsibility. Listen, whatever the science says, if they're telling us we need booster shots at this point, which they are saying, let's do it, right? The Biden administration's responsibility, though, is to obviously communicate that message, but don't communicate that message while simultaneously allowing these things that are exacerbating the pandemic to continue, which is the ridiculousness of the governors forcing states to not have mask mandates, or the kind of language and rhetoric that is undermining the vaccine. Like, there's a lot of things that are happening simultaneously that, whereas the Biden administration is on the right side on one side of the equation, they're really allowing this pandemic to spread by not nipping everything else in the bud and confronting it head on. Like, booster shots are great, but what else is great? A mask mandate.
So, what group of people is, and I know I don't have kids, you have kids, like, where are you seeing this anecdotally, this push to return to schools? Because a lot of what I've seen this come from are well-off people, not necessarily people who I think can't necessarily afford it. It's a lot have been driven by upper class parents, from what I've heard. Again, this is anecdotal. And then now we're seeing no masks in schools, return in full capacity, protests from the Republican grassroots at PTA meetings. Yeah. You're in Georgia. What have you seen when it comes to your own kids and schools as a parent?
It's eerily the same thing that I see as I speak with my sister, who has been a teacher, or sisters who all three of them have been teachers for over 20 years each. And they're all, different varying degrees of being in administration and classroom. And what they're telling me is this: it's the same thing that we see here in Georgia, same thing we're seeing across the country, is that there's primarily three groups who are involved in the going back to school phenomenon. And you nailed the first one, which is rich people who just really don't feel like being bothered with their kids. Now, they're not going to send their kids to public school, but they still want their kids to go to some type of institution during the day because they just don't want to be with their kids. The second group are those working class parents who the mother's working, the father's working, or whatever combination thereof. And they absolutely need someone to where to put their kids so that they can go to work. I believe this is the group that the government is absolutely targeting the most, because these are the people that are going to go back into the factories, go back into the call centers, and carry out their daily duties in order to help these billionaires hit their quarterly profit margins. And they're also the same people who are going to go out and consume, spend money in traffic, in gas. And if those people are not pushed back into the system because their kids need to stay at home, well, then everything falls apart. And then the third group that she was talking about, actually now it escaped me, but I think we can really break it down to those two groups: those who don't feel like dealing with their kids, but those who don't have any choice because they're forced to go out into the labor force.
And I understand that it's hard, and say you want schools to return in capacity or whatever. All right, masks. Like, it's just so much of this is projection by these parents that we're seeing protesting and getting so up in arms about their kids having to wear masks. Oh, it's suffocating them, as we're seeing that the Delta variant might have, might be affecting kids more. And so, we're talking, your kid might be suffocated a little bit more than wearing a mask if they have COVID. Like, that might make it a little harder for them to breathe. I'm not sure if they're aware of that.
They don't care. To them, there's the intersection of a gross level of religiosity, conspiracy theory, and I don't want to say derangement, but another word escapes me at this moment. That intersection is what gives us the anti-vaxxers, the QAnon conspiracy theorists, and these are the intersections that we're seeing at these school board meetings, where they are screaming at the top of their lungs with so much conviction and passion over the exact thing that's going to get their children killed.
Right.
That's what's blowing me away. The science will protect their children. They are advocating at the top of their lungs the exact opposite, which is going to get their children killed. So I think we need to understand that we're dealing with a different breed of human here, the ones that have suspended with all sense of primal or paternal instinct to preserve the lives of their children.
Folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.